I want to thank Alex back in the booth, too, for enduring whatever's going to happen in the next 20 or so minutes. I just want to talk about the Internet of Things a little bit and about big data, especially big data visualization. The singularity, robots, media studies is a lot about media interface and how we interact with our media today, and it used to be pretty simple, like books and television and radio and telephones. And now it's all over the place, and that's due to the Internet of Things and the interconnectivity of everything. Nothing like following up someone from MIT, but I'm going to give it a shot. You can roll it. Made the graphic. This is the slideshow that I'm going to show you. I'm going to move through it a little bit slower, but I just wanted to give you an introduction to what we're going to see in the next 20 or so minutes, maybe 25, and it gives you an idea of some of the visual representation of what I like to talk about in my media studies classes and to a certain extent in production. This is some of the stuff that I find very fascinating and contribute to the theme of the robot next door. Okay, so these are ATMs, and these are some of the first things that connected to the Internet of Things other than computers and the original Internet. We're all pretty familiar with ATMs, but now there are Bitcoin ATMs where you can point your phone at it and exchange Bitcoin. These are pretty popular this year. Metro cards are hooked up to the Internet of Things because you exchange your money, and in exchange you get transportation. Computers need to tell us what to do with these kinds of vending machines for inventory purposes and for taking your money. If you notice, this vending machine has wheels attached to it. This is a liquor store in Japan where your ID is connected to your money, and so you can always get liquor at the liquor store. It's connected to the Internet of Things, and it's pretty handy. This is a reverse vending machine. This is what happens after you are done with whatever you purchased from the vending machine. It, too, is hooked up to the Internet of Things. It gives you a little deposit back for recycling. This is an iPod vending machine because, you know, why stop at soda and that sort of thing? Now that we have inventory hooked up to the Internet, you can buy things that are expensive or cheap. The vending works the same way, and this has replaced a lot of shopkeepers. This is a pizza vending machine. This is one of my personal favorite vending machines. In 2.5 minutes, you can have a hot pizza. It tastes, I'm not sure how it tastes, but it looks pretty good. I have not had a vending machine pizza quite yet. That's what it looks like. Hot and ready in 2 minutes. They have locally sourced dough balls in there and vegetables and everything that you would need. You just push the button and you get it. These are some bigger vending machines also hooked up to the Internet of Things. The inventory is all taken care of, and if you keep building out on this concept, you can see that they're starting to set up vending mobile stations with wheels, and thanks to driverless cars and computer automation, convenience stores are being turned into robotic stores. And you can pause it here for a second because this is a dystopic vision of what the future might be from Life magazine. And in some ways, we are really getting there, I would say. So we use these connected mechanical things to commoditize our lives, to get what we want when we want it. And a lot of people think that that sort of automation is what the Internet of Things or robotics might be about these days. These are marijuana vending machines. They're popular on the West Coast and in Vancouver, where it is okay to use vending machines like that. You just, it's funny to me that it grows out of a ground, but it's commoditized and put into machines, and then you can buy this in Vancouver with Bitcoin. It's very interesting to see that sort of thing. Well, the Internet of Things is not really about all of the different things that are connected to the Internet any more than the human race is about our feet. I don't know if you think that is funny. I do. This is a Roomba. When we start talking about the Internet of Things, this is one of the mainstream objects that you can get, a thing that will vacuum your house while you are away. Some people like to decorate theirs like droids, like R2-D2. The funny thing about these is that they algorithmically learn when you are home and when you are gone. They charge themselves, they store themselves away, and they map your house so that they won't hit the couch and they won't get hung up. Now, some people are really interested in what the Roombas do because they're always doing work while everybody else is away, so they put LED lights on the Roombas. They put cameras up on the ceiling, and then they use long exposure photography to map the algorithms of the Roombas. And I think it's really neat to see what that mouse does when the cat is away. You come home, you have a clean floor, it's completely invisible, running in the background, and this is a pretty good picture of what the Internet of Things is starting to do. Your vacuum cleaner is hooked up to Wi-Fi. This is a large room, and you can see the routes of Roombas are pretty interesting, and they do a very good job. This, on the other hand, is traffic patterns of airlines, and I think it looks a lot like the Roomba. It sort of looks like a Roomba, doesn't it? These are domestic flights. Data visualization from air traffic control. This is 1 day's worth of flights. This is the course of action all different kinds of flights take. Here's another visual representation of this big data. The interesting thing about this is we haven't had this kind of technology very long to see visual representations of data. This is Flickr. These are thousands of pictures. It's 1 day visual representation of just how many pictures people are uploading to Flickr every day. The pink spots are over 10,000 pictures. This is a correlation between the cost of, I don't know why I have so many marijuana references, but as the price of pot goes down, beer is less frequently purchased. And in places where it's pretty expensive, you can see people drink more beer. This is an example of data visualization, big data visualization. Here's another one. This is beer and churches. Red means more church, blue means more beer, and we can use big data visualization to not just talk about beer and church, but also how people voted in the last election, broken down by county. And I'm sorry, it's very fine print, and if you want to know more about this, I can share the slideshow with you. This is very fascinating to me to see this kind of visualization of data that we've only had for about 10 years, this sort of ability to visualize what we see happening on the internet. Everything's going well. I worked this out with Alex. Okay, you want to stop this one for a second. This is my favorite big data visualization at the moment. So these are two very close by cities in Italy, and they wanted to track GPS patterns. So this is 1 day, everybody who entered directions into their GPS to get somewhere. These are two big areas in Italy. They're nearby, and they wanted to see how many of the people are actually commuting and what their traffic patterns look like. And this is what that kind of data looks like visually. The purple are the commuters, and the blue are the people who stay in their city. The red are the people who stay in their city, and all of the interconnectedness is just GPS routes for 1 day in Italy. I thought you can keep rolling it now. I just think it looks beautiful. I've never been able to, when people started talking about big data, I thought of Excel spreadsheets, and when I really started to see what things look like visually, and I'm a visual learner, you can probably tell from the amount of slides that I've prepared. This is a cross-reference visualization of all the books of the Bible. This is Genesis on one side, Revelation on the other side, and every time one book references another book, you can see the patterns. They go forward and backward. I think that is a pretty neat visual representation as well. This is a visual representation of the internet itself. These round areas are big servers, and some of the heavier traffic patterns are how servers communicate with mainframes and how traffic gets whittled down into different parts of the country. This is the work of Charter and Time Warner and all of that. People think about the cloud. This is a visualization of the cloud. This is data moving through the cloud, the internet. Here's another representation of that. when people say, what is the cloud? What does the cloud look like? This is what it looks like. This is one way we are able to visually represent the cloud. This, on the other hand, you might be able to recognize is a neural connection visualization of the brain. These are all the synapses and neural networks in the brain represented visually, so you can see how the brain works and how messages travel through the brain. Here's another visual representation of what is going on in your brain. And once again, here's the internet, and this is what the internet looks like. This is the servers and all of the different information traveling through the internet, and this is your brain. I feel like this is your brain on drugs. This is the internet. This is the human brain. And just for dramatic effect, here is one more representation of what the data, what the cloud looks like visually. And it's spanning across the globe. So I thought I would throw a few quotes in here along the way. That was a pretty fast one. That was really fast too. So when people think of the Internet of Things, maybe they think about the Amazon Dash button. This is new technology. These connect to Wi-Fi in your home within 1 minute when you bring them in, and then you stick them in the pantry, in the laundry room, on the washing machine. They interface with the internet, and then when you run out of Tide or Gatorade, if you keep Gatorade, or they've got over 100 different Dash buttons, there's a little teeny computer in it. All you do, you run out of Tide, you push the button, and it's the same as ordering something on Prime. This is Prime Air. This is drone delivery of your Amazon products, and you can get your Amazon Prime delivered in 30 minutes via drones using the Dash button. This is what Dash deployment looks like visually. Somebody hits that green Tide button, and a drone from Amazon brings you your laundry detergent and your Gatorade because you need it that badly. You need it that badly. This is what a drone looks like. The price of an Amazon drone is now about $44. They rip through them. They've got this beautiful plan of these airships, Amazon airships, that are 45,000 feet above the air and deploy drones so you can get your stuff because you need your stuff so quickly and so badly. So this question, I hope it will stay up a little bit longer. Is all of this Internet of Things, this interconnectedness, getting us what we want, or are we willfully participating in what it wants us to do? I see these competing brains. That's why I showed you the visualization. We have the internet brain and the human brain. And anybody who's watched Netflix and it says what it wants you to watch next, or Pandora, or any of these algorithm programs, you might have a sense of whether you're controlling it or it is controlling you. And I thought I'd throw this in, a cartoon of Santa Claus, like, how can he compete with Prime Air? This is going well. This is, I only barely rehearsed. So these are all the vending machines hooked up to the Internet of Things. Again, this might be a traditional view of what you think you might be able to buy and what robots can do to you, but here is a conversation starter, perhaps this next slide. Is all this commoditization leading us somewhere in our human race where we do not want to be? I mean, why do we need that on-demand technology so much? Is this the kind of territory we're heading into? This is like a question that I think about a lot. What if the machine, the interconnectivity, the brain that we are building, what if its sensibilities, while we are just trying to come up with ways to get what we want faster and to talk to fewer and fewer humans about our stuff that we need to have dropped in via airship? What if we're building something that will become consciously aware and take one look at our race and our progress and think, ooh, you know, what hath God wrought comes to mind if humans have to claim responsibility for this robotic brain that we're building and This is not Scarlett Johansson. This is a robot. And Ricky built that robot. This is the state of robotics now. This is what people are trying to build. And so when I talk about this vending machine, that picture you saw just a little bit ago, I'm not messing around. This is a very recent build of a robot. That's a robot, you can probably tell. But as time goes on, it's becoming harder and harder to tell. I can't comment on the whys of why we're building some of this stuff, but I do read the headlines, and I see a super realistic robot goddess cracks jokes and calls its creator my lord, and this is very unsettling to me, but this is actually what is happening. We're building Amazon dash buttons and vending machines, of course, but we're also, as a human race, building some very unsettling machines. This is still from the movie Westworld, which I think some of you may have seen or you may have heard about. And that's a conversation for another time, but we're coming into an age where what we're building, we have to become more ethically aware of the implications of what is being built. And so I go back to that picture of the internet brain. One of the slides that came by really quickly said, this is from Ex Machina, by the way, another film about artificial intelligence becoming self-aware. What the one slide said back a ways back, and it flashed on and flashed off, it was that a robot does not care whether it is built with bits or bytes or plastic or silicon or carbon. It's stuck in a machine no matter what. But another way to look at that is that maybe it's not stuck in a machine and it never was. It's always been that representation we just saw. This is probably not what you think. This is for dental school. This is a robot designed so that you can work on its ultra-realistic teeth, and if you get too close to the nerve endings, it starts to jerk its head and do things that would cause anxiety to someone in dental school, especially if they're working on a real person. This ultra-realism, it doesn't just... It has applications that extend beyond entertainment and into medicine. Maybe you've heard of the Turing test. This is the idea if you're interacting with a robot and you think it's human, then the robot wins the Turing test. But what about the uncanny valley? This is like the aesthetic corollary to the Turing test. And so this is an image that I ask you, can you tell whether or not this is a robot? Does this look like a human or a robot to you? The aesthetic version of the Turing test is called the uncanny valley. As we create things that look more human, they become deeply unsettling for a moment. And if we push on beyond that, if we develop something ultra-realistic, so that it fools the eye, and these next few slides, I'm wondering if you can tell as you look at these images whether what you see is human or not. This is an ultra-realistic recreation of Robert De Niro circa Taxi Driver days. He was rendered very recently. This is an ultra-realistic representation of anybody you probably can tell, Jack Nicholson. We're doing this more and more in movies. So when we talk about whether or not we can recognize whether we're talking to a human or a robot, whether what we see is robotic or human, the lines are constantly blurring. And the thing is, all of this is happening so fast, kind of like this talk, by the time you get a chance to process it, we're already on to the next thing. This is the original Terminator. This is a CGI of the Terminator. It's a little bit dark, but it's almost impossible to tell the difference. That's one of the themes of this talk. How do you know whether the person living next door to you is a robot or not? And maybe it's a question you don't ask yourself, but look to the left and look to the right. Can you tell whether the person you're talking to is human or robot? And to drive this point home, I want to talk about material science for just a second, because why not? Can we 3D print people? Well, we can. We absolutely can. And they may not be fully functional people yet. They may be representations of people, but we're moving into the territory. This is graphene. If you know anything about material science, you've probably been reading a lot about graphene. Graphene is made out of carbon, and it is compatible with the human body because we are carbon-based life forms, and so they're using graphene to create organ architecture, things like that. They drop in a netting or the fabric of a kidney, and your body creates a kidney around it. This is something that is really happening. But right now, mostly people are using 3D printers to make wedding cake toppers and things like that. It's still got a lot of novelty value. This is a 3D printing of a young father. And you can see with selfies being all the rage, why not hop onto the Shapey bandwagon and build yourself a collection of knickknacks modeled after yourself. This is a 3D printed scale model. These are about 5 inches tall. Here's Grandma and Grandpa. Wouldn't you like to have those 3D printed figures? This is a person who printed his face at I don't know if that's 5/8 scale, but it's pretty lifelike. There is a whole family. You can print the whole family. It's pretty quick and easy to do. All you have to do is ask your family members to step in one of these full body scanners, and it swoops around, takes your picture from every possible angle, and then thanks to the Internet of Things, you're able to print yourself. Now, which one is the real one? Hard to say. Here's a picture of a kid looking at 3D printed people at a Consumer Electronics show. And they're amazingly detailed and lifelike. These are just some questions that I was thinking about as I was putting this presentation together. But I'm serious about these questions. They might just sound like throwaway questions to make the audience laugh, but ethically, what comes to mind when you start to see this technology being implemented? And it's really coming at us from all ways. It's coming from the medical field. This is prosthetics, and this is the cutting edge of prosthetics. This has the potential to help a lot of people, and if you think about it, this is bone scaffolding. This is something that you could put into the body, and your bone will grow around it. It's 3D printed, and it works, and it's changing the healthcare industry, the prosthetics industry. This is 3D printed spinal column and vertebrate. If we can get that to work, I mean, wouldn't that be an incredible breakthrough for people who don't have use of all of their limbs? This is liver, and this might seem like science fiction, like McAfee was talking about, but people are working in all industries. This is organ on a chip. One of the problems with getting a transplant or something is the rejection. The possibility of rejection. So people can set up miniature versions of a human body that interact. Those are organs on chips, and then they can test whether or not your body will reject either an analog donation, or one of these new 3D printed donations. And this is a little bit about how 3D printing might work in the future. These are some of the very complicated things that we're able to 3D print right now. This is a vascular system. And this, although it's very complex and very interesting, I don't know if it is art or medicine, and that's kind of the point. The lines are really starting to blur. You start to combine these ideas about the Internet of Things and that visualization of its brain and the kind of technology that exists today, that probably at least some of it you did not know about until you came here today. I hope that's true. Maybe you're all like, yes, of course we know about all of this. We're on the internet. But this is the plan. It's unbelievable. It's like science fiction. This is the idea of creating for yourself a digital version of you and uploading your mind either into a simulated environment or into a robot so that you can continue to exist. People talk about this as being called transhumanism or digital mind uploading. There are a lot of names for it. But there are people who have societies, and they're very motivated, and they are really trying to get into this field of digital immortality. Some people believe that within our lifetime, we'll be able to find immortality, which to me is a very frightening idea. Meanwhile, the robots are getting smarter all the time, and ethical questions. There's just France just passed a bill that said that robots, when they become sentient, they ought to have rights just like humans. And I would expect that we could see more of this conversation in the future. So we've got the robots and the internet that want to become more human, and we've got humans that want to become more like simulations. And these are two films that have recently described this concept. This is a man who falls in love with a Siri-like sentient, self-aware assistant, and this is about a scientist who uploads his mind into a computer. And so this stuff is going mainstream. These are A-list Hollywood actors. You've probably seen these films. I think that these two concepts, making the robot more human and making the human more like a robot, create something I like to call an interdimensional portal, where we start to lose track of whether what we're doing each day is digital or analog, and asking ourselves whether or not it matters. So I will leave you with a few pictures that are, I think, capturing, to some degree, humanity. But the tricky thing is, can you tell whether or not they're human? It's hard to say. That's pretty bold. I mean, if you're waiting for it to be reported on the nightly news that the internet brain can think for itself, and maybe this is an even more disturbing thought. Maybe science fiction, maybe not, but hopefully this will foster some critical thinking and some questions and answers and discussions. Thank you for your time, everybody. If you would like to hear a calmed down version of this talk, not this Friday, but next Friday, at the College of St. Scholastica on the 4th floor, we'll take a little bit shorter, we'll take more time. Thank you.